Welcome to Timekeeping. This show will attempt to chronicle year-by-year changes to the Walt Disney World Resort, from the exciting new ride openings to the minutia of a store changing names. Join us as we count down to the 50th anniversary of the vacation kingdom of the world.
At Walt Disney World, 1998 was a wild year. Not only would the resort open its fourth and final, as of now, theme park, but to keep things balanced, each of the other parks opened a headliner new attraction. Beloved classics would close to make way for replacements that wouldn't live up to their legacy. The resort would also open two separately ticketed experiments to mixed results. The 25th anniversary celebration would conclude at the end of January at the Magic Kingdom, and Cinderella Castle would be returned to its normal state. The Main Street Confectionery would undergo an extensive refurbishment. In June, the Main Street Theater ceased being an attraction and became a store. The Remember the Magic Parade was reworked into the Magical Moments Parade. They changed the theme song to Remembering the Disney Magic and removed references to the 25th anniversary celebration, while some character costumes were updated. In Adventureland, the Enchanted Tiki Room under new management opened on April 5th. The changes began in the pre-show area where William and Morris, two talent-agent birds voiced by Don Rickles and Phil Hartman, both are confused that Disney has hired each of their clients to take over the attraction. Once inside, the show begins the same as always, but then it's quickly interrupted by Iago. Zazu soon appears, and along with the original cast, warns Iago against upsetting the Tiki gods. Iago sings a modified version of Friend Like Me, the Tiki birds sing a quick version of Hot, 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 all before the Tiki gods get upset and summon the mighty Aoa, the Tiki goddess of disaster. She sings her song and fries Iago. The Tiki gods then sing In the Still of the Night and break down into a rap version of original Tiki Room songs. Iago would reappear, now burnt, saying he thinks the Tiki gods are going to be a huge hit. The Birdmobile lowers from the center and Zazu sings with the original cast conga. Iago asks the audience to leave as Get On Your Feet plays. The show features the voices of Armelia McQueen, Gilbert Gottfried, Jerry Orbach, Wally Bogue, Thurl Ravenscroft, Fulton Burley, and Michael Gow as Zazu. It also contains many references to the original show and some rather meta Disney jokes, including one about the Hall of Presidents. In Frontierland, the mile-long bar closed on January 5th and was incorporated into Pecos Bill's Tall Tale Inn and Cafe. Over in Fantasyland, despite the protests held inside the park throughout the year, Mr. Toad would take his final wild ride on September 7th when the opening day Magic Kingdom attraction was closed forever. Take Flight, the renamed sponsorless version of Delta Dream Flight, would also close on January 5th and would reopen as a new attraction, Buzz Lightyear's Space Ranger Spin, on October 7th. The first ever shooter ride continued the use of the same Omnimover track as its predecessors going back to 1972, but that is kind of where the similarities would end. Guests are briefed by a human-sized audio-animatronic Buzz Lightyear that they are Space Ranger recruits being sent on a mission to prevent the evil Emperor Zurg from stealing crystallic power fusion cells. After loading, guests are soon given control of the spin of their vehicle in 360 degrees via a joystick. They are also allowed to aim and fire at various targets via mounted guns. First, guests battle Zurg's robots in space before landing on Planet Z, having to battle the native alien animals as well as targeting those Z-circle icons. Next, the guests encounter Zurg stealing the batteries in the power plant before he blasts off, and then you have to face him in space, first in the speed tunnel as a projection, and then as somewhat of an audio animatronic at the conclusion of the ride. Guests are then welcomed back by another Buzz animatronic while they review their score and their rank. At Epcot, Innoventions again saw many changes. Apple's exhibit would close on January 31st, and the Discovery Center would close October 3rd. Other closures included Electronic and Eclectronic exhibits. Next exhibits included the Disney.com Interactive Zone, the Bill Nye the Science Guy exhibit, and Inspired by Vision. The largest change to the Innoventions building was the addition of Ice Station Cool, sponsored by Coca-Cola, which opened in June. This exhibit would enter towards the southwest corner of the plaza and featured an ice cave and snowcat vehicle in front. Guests would enter through an actual snow-filled ice cave via, shaved ice, past a frozen caveman holding a Coke bottle and into a tasting area. Here, guests could taste a variety of Coke products from around the world, including the infamous Beverly. The original Journey into Imagination would close on October 10th for a year-long, quote-unquote, refurbishment. However, the long-delayed General Motors test track would soft open the weekend of December 18th. Guests entered in through a workshop which demonstrated various testing before being shown a pre-show hosted by characters Sherry and Bill McKim. McKim played by John Michael Higgins. McKim would outline the various parts of a General Motors vehicle test, including a now infamous WDWNT favorite.
Yeah, perfect. Okay.
All before guests are led to the loading area where they board their cars. The cars would proceed through rough road tests, brake tests, be subjected to hot, cold, and corrosive environmental rooms where guests would be heated, chilled, and sprayed with water. The 6-person car would then proceed up a handling test before evading an oncoming semi-truck. They're then told they're going to experience the crash test before the wall opens up and they exit the building for the high-speed portion of the ride, traveling at 65 miles an hour top speeds. Guests re-enter the building and exit through an industrial press area where they could buy photos from the crash test and view GM cars exiting through the inside track gift shop. In World Showcase, the China exhibit became the Land of Many Faces. Le Cellier changed from its former counter service to its current steakhouse iteration on July 20th, 1997. On February 1st, Illuminations 25 became Illuminations 98, with the only change from the previous show being a new introduction removing references to the 25th anniversary. Of course, this was just a placeholder show, as the most impressive version of Illuminations would debut the very next year. The Disney MGM Studios continued to lose its original attractions with the closure of Superstar Television on September 26th. Opening day restaurants with the Soundstage Restaurant and the Catwalk Bar would close soon after on November 14th. The Hercules Zero to Hero Victory Parade would change to the Mulan Parade on June 19th. The new parade was led by Mushu being driven on a rickshaw tricycle. The first set of units is led by a performer atop a multi-story dress, as other dancers garbed in ceremonial style dresses from the Honor to Us All scene come by along with dancing pagodas. Next comes an army unit with a float of a giant Shan Yu tied to a firework. The next unit is the Chinese Dragon, doubling as the Great Wall of China. Afterwards, several dancers and performers lead the way for another tall dress float, this time depicting the Emperor. Finally, the parade ends with Mulan and Li Shang riding atop a giant golden chariot pulled by horses. Fantasmic opened off the end of Sunset Boulevard on October 15th at the Hollywood Hills Amphitheater. Unlike the Disneyland version, the first version of the show that opened back in 1992, this one would be housed in a custom-built space complete with snack bars. The show opened with Mickey commanding the dancing fountains, which turned into the Sorcerer's Apprentice projection scenes with pyrotechnics and water effects. This led into a flower projection scene, and then the Lion King sequence, where performers would pass by on small barges. This would turn into the Bubble sequence, which would then feature a Monstro section, which fed into the new Pocahontas scene. The Powhatans would cross on canoes in front of the English on stage before the groups would fight and John Smith would swing across the mountain. Next, the 3 princess barges featuring Ariel, Belle, and Snow White with their respective princes would come by. Then the evil queen would appear, transforming into the old hag on the island stage, summoning the villains to battle with Mickey Mouse in his imagination. A giant snake version of Jafar chases Mickey on stage until Mickey finds the magic lamp, unleashing Hades and Chernabog projections. Maleficent appears in a flurry of flames on stage and eventually transforms into her dragon form. Mickey reasserts that it's his dream they're invading. He finds a sword and uses it to defeat the dragon after she sets the lagoon on fire. Steamboat Willie Mickey then appears on the riverboat surrounded by dozens of dancing characters. Sorcerer Mickey eventually rises from the top of the mountain to summon the fireworks finale. all before stating, "Some imagination, huh?" as the show ends in a blast. On Earth Day, April 22nd, 1998, Disney World's fourth and so far final theme park opened, Animal Kingdom. The opening ceremony featured Michael Eisner and primatologist Dr. Jane Goodall. The massive 500-acre park was centered around the Tree of Life, growing out of the then Safari Village. The other lands of the park included the entrance area, known as the Oasis, Camp Minnie Mickey, Africa, Asia, which would officially open in 1999, and Dinoland USA. The Oasis featured meandering trails through animal exhibits designed to lead guests slowly to the center of the park. It, of course, was home to a WDWNT favorite, a pair of black swans, including Rebecca, the male black swan. Only guest services, locker and stroller rental, and the small sundry shop, Garden Gate Gifts, were actually located in the Oasis. The park's only table service restaurant, the Rainforest Cafe, can only be accessed outside the park from the Oasis or the main entrance plaza. The central hub of the park was Safari Village. Towering over the island was the Tree of Life, the 14-story sculpture with 325 animals carved into its trunks, roots, and branches. The tree was surrounded by the Tree of Life Gardens, trails where guests could explore animal and botanical habitats. The root system also held the cue for It's Tough to Be a Bug, a brand new 3D show. The show itself was housed inside the tree and its oil-rig structure. The 3D show features characters from the then unreleased A Bug's Life film. Flick asked guests to don their bug eyes to learn about bug defenses and habits before an animatronic Hopper interrupts to take his revenge on the humans that attempt to kill insects. Guests are sprayed with smell effects, spiders drop from the ceiling, and tactile effects built into the seat simulate a stinging attack. After Hopper is removed, Flick finishes his presentation on the importance of insects before guests leave with another tactile effect, having an army of small bugs crawl out from under guests' behinds. The Safari Village also featured one of two stops on the Discovery Riverboats, the park's transportation system, and definitely not an attraction. Guests would board for a one-way trip to Asia and pass scenery along the way, including a dragon's den, otherwise known as a rock that fire would come out of, and bathing dinosaurs. As it was both quicker to walk and there wasn't much to do in Asia at the time, the attraction was not well attended, and the riverboats were renamed the Discovery River Taxis in November. They also were known for having incredibly long waits due to their low capacity. It didn't really help people get around. To make the attraction better later in the year, cast members began displaying small animals such as lizards or spiders in terrariums while guests were on the cruise. Safari Village also featured two restaurants, Pete Safari and Flame Tree Barbecue. The two quick service locations featured menus appropriate to their names. The four shops in the village were Beastly Bazaar, featuring general souvenirs, Creature Comforts, focusing more on children's toys and apparel, Discovery Outfitters, selling more adult clothing and accessories, and the main store, Island Mercantile, which featured park-themed merchandise. To the left as guests entered Safari Village was Camp Minnie Mickey. This hastily thrown-together temporary land was themed to the North American wilderness and featured two shows and several dedicated meet-and-greet areas. First was Colors of the Wind, Friends from the Animal Forest, later known as Pocahontas and Her Forest Friends. The show took place in Grandmother Willow's Grove, beginning with Pocahontas singing Colors of the Wind before bringing out small, mostly American animals such as raccoons, possums, and porcupines for guests to see up close. The other show was the Festival of the Lion King. Taking place in the covered but open-air theater, the show was based on recycled floats from Disneyland's Lion King Celebration Parade. The host divided guests into four groups based on their seating area: giraffe, warthog, elephant, and lion. The four corresponding animal floats and a central float are brought in. The performers begin to dance and perform acrobatics to I Just Can't Wait to Be King. Next is the Tumble Monkeys and Timon performing to Hakuna Matata. After an extremely acrobatic performance, an actor representing Scar performs Be Prepared. This is followed by a fire-twirling dancer. Aerialists perform during Can You Feel the Love Tonight? The cast then sings Circle of Life, and the Tumble Monkeys return for The Lion Sleeps Tonight. The show ends with a full medley finale and a reprise of Circle of Life. Camp Minnie Mickey also had 2 small snack stands, Chippendale's Cookie Cabin and Campsite Funnel Cakes. Africa, as the section was known, was based around the village of Harambe. The land featured 3 attractions, among them the walk-through animal exhibit known as Gorilla Falls Exploration Trail. This well-themed trail featuring African animals in naturalistic habitats would be renamed Pangani Forest Exploration Trail by the end of August, but would eventually return to its original name. Of course, the marquee attraction for both the land and the park in total was Kilimanjaro Safaris. After being introduced to the animal reserve and its warden, Mr. Wilson Matua, in the queue, guests would board the safari vehicle Simba 1 for a tour through different African biomes, such as the forest, the rivers, and the savanna. Theoretically, guests would pass real hippos, crocodiles, giraffes, zebras, lions, elephants, and other animals. While Imagineers used tricks involving food and cooling to lure animals into viewable areas, it did take some time for many to get used to the truckloads of guests coming by. The original version of the safari also featured manufactured elements. In addition to a collapsing bridge, a plot involving poachers on the reserve was woven into the ride via radio communications from Mr. Wilson. Guests would then help track down the poachers who had kidnapped a mother and her child elephant pair, Big Red and Little Red. At the end of the ride, guests would pass the corpse of Big Red and eventually an animatronic Little Red that had been saved. Due to the graphic and traumatic nature of seeing a dead elephant and heavily armed cast member, these 2 elements were quickly removed from the ride during previews of the park. Africa was also home to the Wildlife Express train. Guests could be seated facing the left side of the train and pass backstage animal habitats, all before being dropped off at the Conservation Station and Rafiki's Planet Watch. The area housed the Affection section, a small petting zoo for domestic animals such as goats and pigs, and the Hall of Animal Care, where guests could look in on some of the veterinary labs. The area also housed a few small exhibits, including sound booths and interactive touchscreens, as well as the Munch Wagon, selling hot dogs, and the Out of the Wild conservation-themed gift shop. Back in Harambe, guests could shop at Mombasa Marketplace and Zawani Traders for African-themed gifts, decor, and toys, as well as Duka La Filmu for camera needs. The Tusker House restaurant opened as a quick-service location, serving prime rib, fried and rotisserie chicken, and salads. The Kusafiri Coffee Shop and Bakery, Tamu Tamu Refreshments, and Harambe Fruit Market all sold, as you might guess, refreshments and snacks. The African Lounge, as it was known, served as a bar where guests could enjoy cocktails and live African music. The Asia section of Animal Kingdom housed little in 1998, thus why it wasn't even noted that it had opened. Along with the Discovery Riverboat stop, the only attraction was Flights of Wonder, a live bird show highlighting parrots and other exotic birds. Since much of the land was still under construction, set to open in 1999, the only other things in Asia were Mr. Kamal's Burger Grill and Drinkwalla refreshment stand. The final land, Dinoland USA, was entirely sponsored by McDonald's. The main restaurant in the area, Restaurantosaurus, featured McDonald's Happy Meals, Chicken McNuggets, and French fries, but also hosted the park's one-character meal, Donald's Prehistoric Breakfastosaurus. Guests could also get McDonald's fries at Dinoland Snacks and turkey legs at the Dino Diner. Chester and Hester's Dinosaur Treasures was the land's only store. The anchor attraction was also heavily sponsored by McDonald's, Countdown to Extinction. Here, guests visiting the Dino Institute pass through traditional dinosaur exhibits, narrated by Bill Nye the Science Guy, before entering a pre-show area. Here they are informed by Dr. Grant Seeker, played by Wallace Langham, that they will be sent back in time to moments before the asteroid impact wiped out most life forms on Earth, all to rescue an iguanodon, despite what his boss, Dr. Marsh, has said. Dr. Marsh, of course, played by Felicia Rashad. Guests then board the 12-seat EMV Time Rover to be sent back to the age of the dinosaurs. In search of the iguanodon, guests pass various animatronic dinosaurs such as the Styracosaurus, Alioramus, Hydrosaur, Raptor, before first encountering the large Carnotaurus. After passing a sneezing sauropod, The ride quickly whips around into a scene where a pterodactyl would appear to swoop down at your vehicle, and then Compsognathus would appear to jump over the ride path. These two effects would break very early on in the ride's history and never be repaired. After the vehicle appears to stall, it's chased by the Carnotaurus through the meteor shower forest. The large Carnotaur would attack guests from the side as they would get their picture taken, a flash of lightning, I guess. The vehicles would then spot the Iguanodon finally holding a tree, actually saving them from death. The ride would end with a giant asteroid approaching guests as they dipped into the finale. Guests are brought back to unload and are told to keep quiet about the Iguanodon they brought back, while they see surveillance footage of the Iguanodon loose in the Institute. The land also featured the Boneyard, a large playground designed around a paleontological dig site, a few reptile exhibits, and the Cretaceous Trail, which featured ancient plants. In the fossil preparation lab, guests could view the skull of Sue, the Tyrannosaurus that would later be moved to Chicago. And the 1998 Dinosaur Jubilee housed fossils and other dinosaur artifacts. This was a temporary tent meant to round out the attraction offerings for the park at opening, since it was such a short list. Strangely placed in Dinoland was the Theater in the Wild, showing the Journey into the Jungle Book show. This was a retelling of the Jungle Book story, featuring costumed characters different from the way they were often presented in the parks. Bagheera narrated the show, which featured Colonel Hattie's March, The Bare Necessities, and I Want to Be Like You, before the conflict with Shere Khan. The show ends when Mowgli heads to the human village and a Bare Necessities reprise as a finale. The costumes ranged from clearly multi-person puppets to hybrids between traditional Disney fur costumes and more human appearances. Meanwhile, Bagheera looked like he stepped out of a Broadway performance of Cats. The original parade at Animal Kingdom was the March of the Artimals. The parade featured colorful animal costumes that more closely resembled mascots or even piñatas than actual animals. Floats included murals made of flat animal cutouts and also wheeled bicycles, some topped with sea turtles, a singing frog, a beehive, a lion playing gazelles like drums, and a spider's web. The parade oddly featured no Disney characters. The Polynesian Resort continued to see changes as the original Coral Isle Cafe would close on July 25th to become Kona Cafe on November 23rd. Fiji, Samoa, and Tahiti longhouses received their renovations to match what had been done to the others over the past years. The half marathon was added to the lineup of races hosted by the Walt Disney World Resort in January. Downtown Disney saw many new venues open. Pleasure Island saw the Neon Armadillo give way to the hip-hop-themed BET Soundstage Club on June 10th. This was just days after the Wild Horse Saloon opened as the new country venue on May 31st. Magic Masters was where guests could buy magic tricks and see demonstrations on the west side. On June 19th, a new ticket venue opened on the west side as well. Disney's new concept for an indoor, interactive theme park. Disney Quest. The 5-story complex would open requiring a small admission fee and would charge per game or experience via cards guests could reload. Guests would enter through a lobby elevator hosted by the genie from Aladdin and would then be let out onto the 3rd floor, free to explore the different zones of the arcade-style pavilion. The score zone and replay zone spanned the top 3 floors. The replay zone featured more traditional arcade games in the Midway on the Moon, but also Buzz Lightyear's Astro Blasters. This version was a bumper car style attraction that allowed guests to drive around and shoot balls at each other's vehicles. In the score zone, guests could ride the Comics, a VR game where guests could battle villains using a lightsaber-like device to various degrees of success. The team shooter Invasion, an extraterrestrial alien encounter, was indeed based on the Magic Kingdom attraction of the same name, bringing excess tech back into the fold outside of the kingdom. Mighty Ducks Pinball Slam was a game featuring standing motion controls to control a pinball board. The 2nd floor housed the Create Zone, featuring Cyberspace Mountain. This allowed guests to build and ride a simulated roller coaster, fairly high-tech for 1998. Other art-based attractions included the Animation Academy in its first incarnation, Living Easels, and the Magic Mirror. Sid's Create-A-Toy, based on the Toy Story villain, had guests design a hybrid mixed-up toy that they could actually build and take home. The Explore Zone took up space on the first and second floors. On the second floor, the virtual reality Aladdin's Magic Carpet Ride was a game similar to what had previously been at Innoventions. The paddling simulator Virtual Jungle Cruise was also there, as was the team shooter Hercules in the Underworld, and the remote control cars of Treasure of the Incas rounded out the attractions on the first floor. Treasure of the Incas actually operated in the floor underneath guests who were walking by, and guests piloting the cars could actually see where they were going via an onboard camera. The complex had 2 restaurants, Food Quest and the Wonderland Cafe, operated by the Cheesecake Factory on the upper floors. The Emporium shop was located at the exit of the entire experience on the first floor. Cirque du Soleil La Nuba opened on December 23rd at the far end of the new West Side. The large white circus-themed building housed the troupe's first non-Vegas permanent location. The show's original run contained several acts: a parade and prologue, the German wheel, the high wire, a dance interlude, Diabolos, a BMX scene, the aerial cradle and ballet, the chair balancing act, the trapeze, and the trampoline acts. One could say that the Walt Disney World Resort as we know it was completed in 1998 with the addition of its 4th and final theme park. However, even this park would quickly begin to evolve out of necessity. More competition down the road would push Disney further into the thrill category in 1999, marching hand in hand with a massive celebration into the new millennium. Well, time flies. Enjoying your jump from time to time with us? Well, please hit that like button and subscribe to support this show and others. You can also join the WDWNT Inner Globe Society for exclusive content at patreon.com/WDWNT. If you're looking for the perfect gear to celebrate 50 years of Walt Disney World, you can shop for apparel, accessories, and more at carouselofproducts.com. Be sure to join us for our digital celebration of 50 years of Walt Disney World with the Golden Jamboree happening October 2nd and 3rd. Digital tickets are available at goldenjamboree.com. We'll see you real soon here on Timekeeping.